So my first speech, I talked about marlin fishing, which is the number one thing on my bucket list. And today I'd like to talk about number two, and that's witnessing a sumo match. That might sound kind of strange to you, but I've always been a sucker for tradition, and I find the Asian culture pretty interesting, so it came pretty easy. Speaking of sumo wrestling is 2,000 years old. And the reason for that is because it's tied so closely with the Shinto religion. In fact, sumo means way of the gods. And way back when, villages would hold festivals and have sumo matches to entertain the gods. And in return, they would get divine protection, a good harvest, etc., etc. If you look at a sumo ring, there's a lot of Shinto imagery. The four corners with the colored tassels represent the four seasons. And the purple bunting above that represents cloud rotation, with the ring representing the earth, really all coming back to agriculture. In fact, the referee in the middle there, as you can see, he's dressed as a priest. And the sumo wrestlers, they have rules they do before a match even starts, and this can take quite a while. The most famous one everyone knows is stomping of the feet, and that supposedly scares away demons. The salt throwing, as you see above you, or me, is to purify the ring. Just go like this, and that's to show that he has nothing to hide, no weapons, and that's actually why they're so scantily clad, is to show that they're just bringing themselves to the fight. This comes back from the samurai era, where swords were a lot more of a threat at the time. So let's talk about the match and what that entails. You might think it's quite complex with all the rituals I talked about beforehand, but it's actually quite simple. There's not a lot of rules to sumo wrestling. The goal of a sumo, or as the Japanese call it, the rikishi, that's what they call sumo wrestlers in Japan, is to knock the opponent out of the ring or to take them off their feet. And like I said, there's only a few rules. They consist of no hair pulling, no striking opponent with a clenched fist. It has to be open palm, but you cannot have a choking motion. You can hit an opponent in the throat. You can't choke them. And the most obvious one is no grabbing the area. For obvious reasons. So with the techniques, so with that in mind, a sumo wrestler can use, I believe there's 60 effective techniques they can use. And I'm not going to stand here and talk about every technique. But I will tell you one, pretty successful one, and it's called uwate. And what uwate is, it translates to, is the outer grip. And that is when an opponent will grab the outside belt of his opponent and lift up. And he could do two things at this moment. He can throw him down, take him off his feet, or if he's big enough, he can actually carry him to the edge of the ring and drop him, winning them. So let's talk about the sumo wrestler himself. Yeah, to North Americans, they're just a bunch of fat guys bouncing off each other. But in reality, it's actually quite a tough life. It's very rigid, very routine. They all live in giant households called stables. That's 50 to 60 sumo wrestlers living together. And the head of the stable is a stable master. I don't have the translation, but they're the authority. They do all the training. And so they have the sumo wrestler, the stable master, and also the ushers and hairdressers live within that stable. So it's all very tight-knit. I want to talk about rank, though. I have to really stress rank when it comes to sumo wrestling because it's very, very important. In a stable, a high-ranking sumo wrestler gets a lot of perks. Everything's done for him. When it comes to training, he can get up whenever he wants, 8, 9 o'clock. A low-ranking sumo wrestler will have to get up at 5 every day. When it comes to eating, a high-ranking sumo wrestler eats first, goes down the chains. The low-ranking ones eat last. And actually, they serve the high-ranking sumo wrestlers as last but not least. High-ranking ones get paid more. Low-ranking ones do not. So that's why a sumo wrestler is constantly looking up, constantly looking to improve his rank. And that's why tournaments are so can improve their by beating another rikishi of higher rank in a tournament. It's not just their life, like it literally is their life. And that's because they were recruited from young boys from stables to be trained as a sumo wrestler. All the well and good years ago, but this generation doesn't really want to jump into becoming a sumo wrestler. So the sport is actually recruiting boys from other countries, not just Japan. This country, Mongolia, China, Bulgaria, and even Russia. That's one problem for the sport, but that's not the only problem. I don't know if you guys know, some may, is that corruption is a pretty big issue when it comes to sumo wrestling. And there's actually a word for this in Japanese. It's called yao cho, and that's bout picking. And what that, there's a lot of reasons for that, gambling. But the main one is a sumo wrestler wanting to maintain his high rank. And it's unfortunate that that's a problem, but not everything's perfect. And I don't think it would deter me from wanting to see a match because, I don't know, as a North American, you can't witness things that are 2,000 years old. It's a unique experience, and I really hope I get to one day, and I hope you guys get to as well. So thank you.